Okay, hello everyone. Um, just tell me if there's any problems with the sound. And so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the game number one once more. And I'll go through it relatively quickly this time because I did a very detailed commentary, I think, on it the first time. And that was the live stream. It's still there on my YouTube channel, so you can find it there. And however, there's a point towards the end of the game where I got a bit confused, and it turns out that's where Tang Weixing lost the game. So apparently, it was difficult for him also. Yeah, so these games get difficult sometimes, and I'm going to tell you how that happened. So it's like Shin Jinseo, he sort of used magic and won the game. So just to go through this game, just the moves here. Um, Shinjin, so in this game he has white, so the names are in the right places. I might have to change that for the second game. Um, I don't see anyone commenting about the sound, so I guess it's okay. So this is a fairly reasonable looking opening. Yeah, and yes. So I was saying that this attachment on the 3-3 point and black's extension. Oh, very good. Thanks for commenting on the sound. Thank you. I just like to make sure. Um, the extension here and black's attachment at the 3-3 point, they're sort of connected because black is setting up the attachment that black plays next. Oh, sorry, not that one. This one, which is making use of the black stone there. And it's just the right distance from black stone on the side. So this stone on the side is making a 3-point extension. And if we took that marked stone off the board and gave black a free move, it would be probably where black chose to play anyway. So it's in the perfect shape. So that's why black was sort of setting that up with the 3-3 attachment. And I say that because white had various ways to answer the 3-3 attachment. So, for instance, theoretically, white can answer with moves like this, which will have weak points here, and so different weak points. There's also the fact that this would lead to a very complicated variation. And sometimes this one would be more like black taking away the territory here and connecting to the side. And ideas like this. So there's that weakness. Or white could play like this, which would usually be an idea of allowing black to live with a ko maybe here. So it would be something white would do if there was a fight developing on the lower side or somewhere on the outside. So white has a number of choices, but when black probes at this point, it's generally answered here. This is probably the best move. And so after establishing that exchange, black played here with the kind of the promised forcing moves here on the outside next. So I sort of like the way that black was playing those moves in coordination with them, with each other. So here white is just floating around in the center, and eventually white is going to be looking at opportunities to attack this black group on the left. So white's not really going to take away black's lower side, and that is because there is an opening here underneath. So it's not as if that's a huge territory. So yes, so white cuts here. I would say that this whole variation here with white squeezing here, it was going well for white because basically at this point, black doesn't really feel like connecting in that clumpy shape, and it's not going to amount to a very big attack anyway. And so this is where black stopped attacking there, and you can see black is being pushed down to the third line as far as the whole side there is concerned. So it's going according to plan for white. And of course, this is a game with 7.5 points Komi. So computer programs, the Go AIs, will give white a good score to start with. But I think Shin Jinseo has gained a little in the opening here. And it's really hard to say how that happened, but it's just he does play a very solid opening. So black has settled the left side. I think that's reasonable. And white jumps in here. And now white starts to build towards the center. So this was really interesting in a position where I would have been satisfied to play the capping move here, which is less forceful. It would give black more opportunities to choose any kind of move. So for instance, black might play here, or could attack here. It's just black does have more choices of how black wants to continue here. Sorry, yeah. Maybe like this. So he was trying to be more forceful. I think that that's reasonable. Although it looks like it's usually considered dangerous to be attaching like this, it's actually a good way to make shape. The end result is usually that both sides get reinforced when you have a fight like this, where white has played attaching. And so white does cut off the black group on the side, and now it's living alive on the this group on the right. I would say it's more or less alive now, so that's okay. And so at this point, the game seems to be going well for white. I was thinking it was good for white. Black has this group, which is not settled yet. White's group on the side here, it's pretty much settled. So that group doesn't have any problems. And so white's group is this group on this side. So yeah, that's a bit messy. So let's get rid of that. And then black has another group here, which is, it's not necessarily 100%. So on the left side, if white at some point plays here, that black group will not have two eyes. So I think this is okay for white. And yes, this is threatening to cut white off at that 3-point extension. So if black jumps again here with the wedge here waiting to happen, that would be a bit of trouble for white. So white plays this forcing exchange and protects. So it all makes sense. And the game, although it looks good for white, it is very close. So this is where it got very difficult to judge, because in the local fight here, in which black has 3 weak groups, let's just circle the 3 weak groups. Black has a group here, which is not alive. And black has a group here, which is not alive. And black has a group here, which is definitely not alive. It doesn't even have one eye yet. It has a potential eye on the right side. So black has these 3 groups, which are not alive. And we're going to see how he handles them while taking some territory. And after black plays this move, reinforcing that black group, if I were playing with white, I wouldn't really assume that I would be able to kill something. So white's goal in this attack, and we'll see this in the game. We'll see this happening in the game. White's goal is to create a territory in this general area. And so because of the fact that black has all these weak groups, white basically used this jump as a forcing move later in the game. Leonardo de Wagner asks, why did the forcing exchange before connecting? Was the force valuable? Are we talking about 018, or could you clarify which forcing move? The L16. Yes. So we are talking about 018, I think. So this is just a great point for white to be able to play. And it is threatening. So if black, for instance, played something like this, if black tries some fancy way to survive there, then this is going to be a very strong wedge. And it's going to be, even if white just pushes through here, it's going to be a very, it's going to be sufficient rebuttal of black's attack at 5, just because white's going to be able to break through there. So it's a perfect time for white to play that as a forcing move and sort of probe how black is going to answer it. So black had various ways to answer it, but in the game here, yeah, that was a forcing move for black, and then black just connected. And this is reinforcing the connection between these two stones. For instance, if black had played this way, and white might play here once anyway, but when white extends here, there is a weakness here, or white could actually play a peep from the other side. The black group in the center is actually, it's much weaker when black has played that move at 1. So for one thing, white was asking how black connects there, and it was also a good time to play it before white responded to the, let's just leave one mark. Before white responded to this mark stone, white wanted to force black to connect all the stones up so as to get as much mileage towards the center before white had to play this move. So I think that answers the question. I'm not so sure about this move, actually. I don't really know exactly what it's doing. But it's not bad anyway. It's probably just, in some cases, he would be worried about black playing at 018, which would be one way black could take away white's eye space. So at this point, white is looking to play the marked stone as, the triangle is a forcing move towards the center. And then white has to end with sente there so that white can play, let's mark this one with a circle. White has to be able to play both the triangle and the circle in order to get a decent territory there in the center of the board. And if white can accomplish that, my gut feeling is that this is probably going to be good for white. So that's the feeling I had as I was watching the game. If white can get the triangle as the forcing move, and the circle as a final finishing move, then that territory in the center is going to be enough for white. And looking at the way Shin Jinseo was playing, that seemed to be his game plan. So white starts by playing here, which is dividing, just splitting this group and this group. So putting the pressure on. And black also has to worry about white splitting black from this side, in which case this group is not alive. And eventually white would be looking at attacking this group. But this group on the left here is black's strongest group of the 3 of them. But it's still not completely alive. So black's sort of busy here. Capping here, this takes some pressure off the center black group. And so basically if white had just pushed through here and black had played something like this, you can see black starting to make life on the upper side while taking some of the pressure off the center. I'm not sure whether black would play that move I was showing, or maybe black would try to connect up. So playing diagonally here would be a bit slow, and white played here. So this makes sense. And now white jumps. So you can see white's plan is developing according to plan. This is the idea that white had. And by playing this diagonal move, basically what white has done is white has established 2 and 4 as forcing moves. So this is going to stop black from playing that move at 1, because this is going to be trouble for black. It's going to backfire. With that black group on the side, it's just going to die. So black cannot attack at 1 because of the fact that white has this stone. This stone that white has just played is making this point a forcing move. So that's what white was doing there. Again, it looks good. And it's taking white one move closer to what white's goal was, which was to build this territory. If at any point black has the leisure to play at this point, that whole territory is going to fall apart. So white has to be able to kill something if black does this. And I think that this is going to be a bit too dangerous for black. So black didn't do that, and instead played here. So this is where I started to have trouble understanding what was happening a little bit, and it worked really well for black. So the whole sequence that's going to start here in the center, I think white must have miscalculated a little bit. And after we've played, I guess it's about 20 moves here, it's going to be a win for black. So at this point, I think the game is still a win for white. And it's like he just, he played outstandingly here. And I'm talking about Tang Weixing at this point. So he played very well here, starting with this move. And white sort of wants to play an Atari. And in the game, white did that. This was probably a mistake. It's a move that white has been tempted to play. But when white ends up connecting here and black gets to cut it off, that makes a nice little territory with one eye here. It adds a lot of security to the black group in the center. And the fact that black could cut there, it means that basically white's attack on the center is going to be very difficult to execute from here on. So what black settled that one group to a certain degree and is getting at least 3 points of territory there, where black didn't really have any. So what white had to do is white probably should have just simply connected. So when your opponent plays a move like this, and you just simply connect, sometimes it's easy to get the feeling that you've been pushed around a little bit. But in this case, it's probably better not to have played the Atari. White still can use the move at 3 to force, and something like this will happen. So black can live on the upper side. It takes a couple of moves. And later on, of course, white wants to play an Atari from this side. And this is still posing a lot of problems for black in the center of the board. So, for instance, this kind of thing was a diagram that I was getting with Katago. And you can see that white is just putting a lot of pressure on black in the center. And it's sort of important that white is playing at 11 there, because that's reinforcing this group here. Because we have to remember that in some cases, white has to worry about the eyes for that group. So it's a good thing that white is moving out in the center, and white is still attacking black in the center, and is going to establish a borderline here, and maybe get some attacking done on the left side of the board. And then finally, white will play this point. So this variation is going to be a win for white. White probably was winning by a few points at this time. But instead, white played the Atari. It's so tempting to play the Atari. But if you can't connect at this point, then it was probably a bad move. It was just giving black some extra territory. So I think cutting there would have been dangerous for white. And he chose not to do so. So he played here, and black got to cut. So at this point, the scores given by computers, it wavers around a little bit. So it's a position that's probably very, very close, and it seems to be difficult for the computer to completely analyze it, at least on my computer. So white connects there, and black is trying to connect there. And white splits the black group. That makes sense. With this move, black is alive on the side. So basically, after this, black can, let's see, black can make an eye here, or can connect to the side. So the fact that black has an eye here in the center, it means that, with this move, taking the one stone in the upper right corner, it was a big move as far as territory was concerned. It gave some extra security to the corner. For instance, if at some point white plays the connection here, in connection to attacking black in some way, and then eventually plays the connection here, we can see that territory that black has in the corner, it's liable to fall apart. So for instance, if white plays here, and black answers all these moves, white's going to have a common living shape. So that was pretty easy, actually. So you can see how these connections on the second line, or the captures that black played on the second line, they're really important points. Yes, exactly, Chris Davis. The Atari, that was where white's score started to go down. And it's sort of ambiguous. Like it wavered around with the various moves they played, which were probably not perfect. But at this point, it looks like white still has some chances. So So white plays here. Yes, and plays here. Now this was still okay, although there was a variation where white played here and then pushed through here. So this was also a possibility. And this is just a variation I was shown by the computer. Basically, white has played a big point at 1 and then has cut black off, which gives white some potential attacking, which squeezing the black group in the center. And in order to make up for that, black has to try to get some extra reduction in the center. So black basically has to play this move at 14. If black had played something like this, then white would peep here and cover here, and that would just be the end of the game. Getting that point at 1, the H18 point, that's a really important, it's a move that's very important. It's a big move. So the end game difference is several points. It's less than 10 points maybe, but it's several points. And so that's why we have in this variation black pulling back at 14. But you can see white's going to push black around a lot here. And even though white is losing the center territory, in this variation it's probably white's getting so much territory on the sides, it's going to be good. So in this variation, it's a good contrast to what happened in the game. So this is really working for my commentary here, in that I'm going to mark various moves. So there's this move at 1, which white got in. So white got this move, white got to capture at 21, white got to capture at 15. White got to play all these moves. It looks like white's going to get a little bit of territory here also, with an Atari at the right of 5, so there's some territory there for white to get. White's getting a lot of points on the second line of the board. In the endgame, the second line is really important. So this is working really well. In the game, the opposite is going to happen. So in the game, white played here, black played here. And this was maybe white's last chance, apart from the fact that he won anyway, but it was white's last chance to stay in the lead, probably half a point. This is the game move. He had to push through here. So to continue, I think he just had maybe an oversight. Maybe he missed the fact. When black plays here, black's group on the upper side cannot be killed. So maybe that was a moment where he sort of overlooked that fact that black is already alive on the upper side. So if white pushes through here, this is putting a lot of pressure on black's group on the left side. So maybe something like this. Black 8 is a big move, so black wants to play that, and it would be very dangerous if black let white play at 8. So black sort of needs to continue like this, and then white can play here, and it's going to be a forcing move. And white can return to the center. This would be several points. This would actually be a win for white. So it gets really complicated if I try to go into more detail, but in this fight in the center, there were some very subtle mistakes on both sides. But at this point, white actually had a chance to win by a sizable margin. So this was a winning diagram for white. If white had just pushed through there, and I think he was just like having a kind of a hallucination or something. For instance, if white plays here, it might look white black, and the black is going to die, but black can play here, and white just can't kill it. Even if black just does it one move at a time, black could start with this move even. And white cuts, black connects, black has a forcing move here. Playing something like this doesn't do any good. This would just allow black to capture it anyway. And that's 2 eyes. So there's no point where white should play at 7. Black's just going to force with all these moves and make 2 eyes. So it's that easy. It would be alive. And when black is connected in the center, this is probably going to be okay for black. Or black can play here immediately, which might be a bit better. This is a bit more difficult to understand, but basically it's the same idea where black is planning to make 2 eyes like this. Good question. Chris Davis is asking, do I remember the time remaining on the clock? Yes. Thank you, Thomas TLS, Thomas Leonardo Su. White still had a few minutes, but yeah, basically they're both in a certain degree of time pressure at this point. So White ended up playing here, taking a few points in profit. But Black is actually getting this point here that Black got to play. That was a big point. This point is going to make a Hanetsugi at D19 there. So it's close to 5 points, that move itself. So it's although it looks like it's almost like a dame point, it's reducing White's territory by 2 or 3 points. So that was close. It was 3 or 4 points move. And the diagonal move at H18, that was bigger. That was something like 6 points. Black's playing some big moves here. And you might note that on that previous diagram, let's see if I can find it. Was it this one? No, sorry about that. It was this one. Yes, this one. In this diagram, White was playing all the big moves. Let's just finish this diagram again. I'll be able to find it next time. So it was this one. Just another look at this diagram here. White's getting all these marked points at 1, that's H18, B13, and B9. Those are all big points. They're all worth something like 6 points each. So back to the game. Oh yeah, I jumped ahead a bit. So Black is getting some of those points. So I'm still ahead of the game, aren't I? So yeah, let's just catch up normally. Yeah, so Black plays here and lives on the side. Now Black's got 2 of those points. And White has not gained any territory to speak of. So now White has to build the center. That was pretty much forced. And there's various ways Black could have played at this point. But Black's winning anyway. Okay, so let's see. The center is Leonardo de Wagner is asking Black's center, is it safely connected? So this center is very safe. It has one eye here. It has a potential eye here. And it has a connection, a potential connection underneath here. So just locally there, disregarding the fact that it's connected up to the left side, it's already alive. At this time, it's already alive. That's going to change later. And I think there was an oversight on Tang's part at that point. But at this point, it's alive. As it stands. And you can see Black has played all these big points on the side. White did get the N18 point. That was big too. But Black is getting all these big points on the second line, while White made the moyo. And that was enough. And the fact that Black is getting all this territory attached to Black's weak groups. So there's capturing this stone and this territory here. Black's building several points for each group as Black dodged the attack. The left side, it's for the time being, it's connected up to the center. So so White's okay Black's okay for the time being. And it looks like we're entering an endgame. So this was the biggest move. That's another second line move that he played. Was big. And he's playing perfectly. Tang Weixing is playing perfectly. And the story is that the Chinese people studying a group of professionals studying the game, they had an AI out, of course, and they were studying the endgame sequence in the upper left corner, and they were saying that there's no chance that Tang Weixing would find that move. So they didn't believe he could find it. It was necessary for him to find it in order to win the game, of course. But he played it. So up to this point, Black is playing a perfect endgame here. And it was this move that they thought he wouldn't be able to find. Okay. I'm wondering if White doesn't have potential to capture the left side. So here, what black is doing with this is actually black is going to create a forcing move at e19. And this is really very significant. So if black had failed to do that and played something like this, a normal endgame sequence, then white would be able to play this as a forcing move. And with this not being forcing anymore, it doesn't make any difference whether black plays there or maybe plays there. It's the same thing, basically. And this forcing move, it's forcing black to answer in what's basically a dame point. So it's a sente 1-point move for white. It also changes if black gets to play that move later in the game, this is going to be a big move for black also, because it's premature to play it now. But in this variation, when black plays all these forcing moves, white in the end is going to be forced to add a stone here. So there's a 1-point difference there in the size of white's territory. So it's a significant move. It would usually be calculated as a difference of 4 points. And in this whole sequence there, black took away white's opportunity to play that move as a forcing move. In order to win by half a point, he had to find this sequence, and he did. So up to this point, black is winning the game. Yeah, so there was... black probably could have played away at this point. But yes, he's going to win by half a point, whatever happens. So there's various suggestions that people were making, but the simplest one is that black just answers the Atari here, just connects. And it's kind of, you have to judge by the entire position, because the game move, it sort of makes sense that black would play an Atari here, allow white to take the 2 stones, and now black gets to play a big move, so black played here. So it sort of makes sense. He was taking sente. He had a big move he wanted to play. Maybe. With computers, it's pretty tricky to know exactly what they mean sometimes. And if black connects here, he would have won by half a point. And it's very simple. Black just allows white to play that as a sente endgame move. And then it's just the J19 point and some other endgame points that are waiting to play. I worked it out. Black's winning by half a point. If black plays here and then takes back again, the local calculation here, white's taking 2 stones, black's taking 1. It means that black's just given white 1 point for free. And so that was, yes, G9 was probably a mistake too. That was, let's see, TLS, Thomas Leonard Su. G9 was a mistake, but this variation I'm trying to show you here with black connecting here, it's probably the same result. So it's sort of borderline to say whether it's a mistake or not. And that variation is a lot more complicated. So that's why I was avoiding that. So what happened in the game? Well, so basically if black had connected here and just answered white like this, he would win. In the game, after playing here and allowing white to taking back, that's already lost a point. So it's probably a win for white. And in the game, black played away. So black plays here, and I think he just had a misconception about what was happening with black's group in the center. You might remember that after black took this stone here, most of the time I've been telling you that this black group is alive as it stands. So for a long period of time throughout this game, this black group was completely alive. It was alive, no problem. But at this moment in the game, when black has played this exchange here in the lower right, actually this black stone and the white stone there, when black has played that exchange, it's not alive anymore. So let's go into that. That's the interesting variation in this game, where this connection that white played, it was a double threat. So if black could have played here, obviously this would have been a big win for black. It's almost 10 points. It's almost worth 10 points, that move in the lower left corner. And so if white plays here, black's going to connect underneath. And if white plays here, black's going to play here. Let's just give white this exchange. Sometimes it's not forcing, but let's say it's forcing in this case. And if white tries to kill it, black has this forcing. And it's alive. So that's an easy life for black. So it looks like black is alive. But actually, and in the game, he didn't play this cut at 1. And instead, he defended the right side. So why did that happen? My guess is that he realized that it's not actually alive at this point in the game. So the way he played the center here sort of indicates that when he allowed white to capture those 2 stones, maybe he thought this black group was alive. That would be sort of logical. It would make sense to me. But at this point, he protected it. So he realized that it's not alive. So what happens here? Does everyone see it? Yes, exactly. M1v8 is asking, is Shin Jinseo a strong endgame player? He's famously strong in the endgame. In this game, I sort of got the feeling that he was almost reading Tang Weixing's mind, and that he sort of seemed to know where Tang Weixing would go wrong. So if black cuts here, white's actually going to play this placement on the right side, and this is going to be a ko. Basically, if black plays here, there was no time for black to play this forcing move here, and it's just dead. So black would have to play the ko, for instance, a ko like this. Ko is probably too dangerous for black. It's just, yeah, that would probably be too dangerous for black. Looks like white has some ko threats. White has ko threats, for instance, let's see, black, even if white doesn't allow black to live there, white would have ko threats like this one. A lot of ko threats there on the left side. There's no hope for black in this ko. So the ko would be a complete collapse. Right, M1v8, Tang, you could say Tang had a breakdown in the endgame. You could say he fell apart, but you could also say he only lost 1 point. So yeah, that's pretty high level. So back to the main variation. So black had to answer on the right here, and white got to play here. And another thing that makes me think that he had the idea that he could play this move is that this would actually refute the move that white did in the game. So when white plays this move in the game, we'll see this come out in the game also. White's idea is to play like this and play like this. And if black connects, white can kill the black group. So this was white's plan here. But if black is cut at 1, it's not going to work. So yeah, let's leave that for later. White can cut black like this. Right, white probably has to play white probably should play these forcing moves fairly early on. Let's just say white plays those and plays like this, killing the black group. Black's going to cut white here. White can cut black with this move. You might note that pushing through here doesn't work because white's in Damazamari, white's in the Sword of Liberties, and will not be able to capture the one black stone. So that would be a collapse for white. That's why white is cutting like this. However, black can play here, and this whole thing is going to be a seki. So it's going to be like this, it's going to be a seki. And this seki, the whole corner is gone. White's territory in the corner is gone. So if black can do this, it would be a win for black. But of course, as I was showing you, there's this ko on the right side. And like these 24 moves that I've played on the left side, all of those moves are white's ko threats. So there's no hope for black in the ko. Okay, and that's a good point. Thumper is asking about black b12. And that's this stone here, where if black had played this stone, uh, the suggested move at a11 or a12 or something like that, black had different moves that black could have played that would have made better eye shape. But this move is the best as far as territories is concerned. It stops white from. So, for instance, let's see if I can find that. If black had answered, for instance, something like this, then later on in the game, white's going to be able to reduce that black territory by 1 point. So that's a 3-point black territory, whereas in the game, it's a 4-point black territory. So the 1 point is very important here. And although this move is slightly weak as far as eye space is concerned, it was important for black to play that way. It was a good thing to notice, though. So yeah, so it was supposed to be a very clever sequence in which black could play here and stop white from attacking black on the left side. And it was, so this would be a 9-point move. It's almost 10 points worth. And it would, at the same time as taking away white's corner territory, it would stop white from attacking black on the left side. A very successful move. But no, because of this move on the right, it doesn't work. So he must have wanted to cry when he played here, because this is obviously it's going to be bad. Now black cannot win semi. So if black connects here, let's see, did I make a variation for, if black connects here, now it's going to be bad news for black, because white can cut black off. And although black can play here, it's already in a target. So it's just not working for black. This is just dead. So back to the game. Yeah, so white gets to cut here with Sente and protect the corner. In the meanwhile, all black got was this stone here. So this was a big move, but it's nothing like those several points white got in the center of the board while squeezing black. That was more important. And the rest of the endgame was perfect. So I'll just show you the moves. And in that fight on the left side of the board, locally, I would say that I think white gained 2 points. White gained 2 points, but we're going to see black, just the timing works out so that black will be able to have an advantage in the final core. So at this point, white did not have the option of if white had a lot of co-threats, white would have been able to play here and make an eye. But since white didn't have enough co-threats to pull that off, white had to connect all the co's. You could say that because black could do that, black sort of got a point back there. And the end result was that black only lost 1 point. Yeah, it looks like they're filling the diamond. So that was the end of the first game. Yeah, it was supposed to be short. But yes, still, I went into more detail in the live stream, and that's still on my YouTube page. So if you're interested. So now let's go to the second game. There's a so that was a pity for Tang Weixing, and he was a bit upset about it. Maybe he was saying that he hadn't made much progress in the 1 year, but of course, he won his way to the final, and beat players like KJ to get to this point. So I wouldn't say he did badly, really. I'd say he was very successful. No, this was the final. Okay, so here we are. This is going to be game number 2, in which Shin Jinseo, it was a best of 3. And, right, exactly. Okay, next game is the game number 2 of the 3-game match. And in this game, Shin Jinseo has black. So maybe I should try Just bear with me. Well, I could try to fix the text. Okay, I guess that's good enough. Okay, so it's a slightly unusual opening where white has played the 3-3 point. AI still dislike the move a little bit, but I think that my AI was still giving white a good score at this point. It is a 7.5 point komi, so white's supposed to be winning. And this is a point where white did not play the pressing move, so this was a bit of a surprise to me. I think in this case we would have seen this one, and maybe we would have seen something new. So this is a variation that AlphaGo was showing us for the first, well, not really the first time. It has been played before. Something like this could happen. There's various ways this could turn out. Just one example. And so the black's corner there's some potential for a ko there if white plays this move at some point. But of course, white has to protect on this side. It's not clear whether white's going to get out in the center. A lot of uncertain things. So at some point, I think I was seeing a variation, something like this. Usually both sides manage to live somehow. But there's a myriad of variations. So that's just one example of what could happen. Or maybe we would have seen something new, but white avoided that variation and allowed black to kick here. And plays the double cockroach. We see a lot of this in modern games. An attachment. And here, basically white's idea is probably to build the right side while putting pressure on black in the corner. So I didn't actually check it out, but if black connects, white would probably continue with this move, putting some pressure on that black group. So black attaches here. I sort of agree with that. But this is, and white plays the normal joseki move. But this is a joseki, well, it's a joseki. The context of those two white stones on the right side sort of change it here. So these two stones, white should play to make them good moves. So this is a mistake that I would call it a mistake. And I would definitely not have played the game move. I would have played here. And I think this is clearly better. If black plays somewhere in the corner, it depends how black... If black plays here and here, now white already has some kind of a position on the side. Maybe white could play here now. So that would be a big difference. Or at some point, this is a move that AlphaGo played in a kind of a similar situation, and then white could build on the right side. So this is all working. This is the direction that white wants to add stones to, in order to justify these two stones that white played here, getting a nice position on the right side. Very natural way to play. It was sort of weird that he played here, and the joseki is for black to play here, and for white to play here, and this would be too easy for black. So maybe his plan was to play this move after that exchange. But it was very flexible, a good move for black to play here at this point, giving the corner to white and playing here again. Both of these moves, very thick moves, sort of Shin Jinseo's style. He's building a strong position so he can attack next. And it's working really well. This is the point where Shin Jinseo starts to take control of the game. So he had a good start here. Thank you, Roger Lucan. So white plays this. There's the fact that when white adds stones to the 3-3 point, although the 3-3 point itself has is given a bad score by computers. When white starts to add stones to it, it doesn't have the weakness of the opponent jumping into the 3-3 point. So if you compare this stone at the 3-3 point to a more common stone, say at the 4-4 point, the difference is that this area is more likely to turn into a white territory. So that's the one thing that justifies playing a 3-3 point. Makes it work for human players. Computers don't like it very much, yeah. So white plays here. This is a move I see a lot. It has been played against myself. The Q13 move. For playing S17. Well, yeah. That exchange, the S17 Q13 exchange, was probably a pretty even exchange. I don't think that I would call that necessarily bad. I think it was white's move at R18 that I didn't like. So that was a question by Roy Wang. And black plays here. When black plays here, there's a ladder involved. So when black attaches here, the idea is that if white covers, black's going to cut. And the Go proverb says that you extend one direction from the cut. So let's try both extensions. So we can try this one first. In this case, there's going to be a ladder involved. So white doesn't really want to be crawling on the second line indefinitely. So the ladder here is the tesuji that white uses to deal with this. And the ladder has to favor white. So for the time being, this ladder does not favor white. There's too many black stones getting in the way there. White could try to make the ladder work, in which case it would be a different fight. But for the time being, the ladder is just not working, and black will play here. So that's a collapse for white. Otherwise, if we look at white pulling back here, for the time being, it's going to be okay for black to squeeze from above. And this is probably just good for black locally. It's just a clump of white stones. So that would explain why white plays away. And white was looking at this exchange of this stone here and this stone, kind of a probe. So white's not going to play try all out to get a ladder break, but instead is going to leave that left side position as kind of potential for white to do something with later on. And that's a way to deal with it. So white plays this big move, creating some aji inside black's territory. And black starts to cap. So from this point on, black is going to be attacking, and white is going to sort of invite that. You might remember that Tang Weixing did very well in handling his weak stones, his weak groups, in the first game, which I just showed you before this. And so in this game, he seems to have the same strategy. He's going to allow Shin Jinseo to attack some of his groups, and he's going to take as much territory as possible in the process. So white's sort of inviting this attack, but it's not as if white's going to get into too much trouble. So at this point, the white group, it looks like it's going to be okay. And black stops the attack for once. And now white jumps out here. And black starts chasing white. And the whole attack that started with this, it did not turn out very well for Shin Jinseo. So this is where Shin Jinseo seemed to trip a little bit. And the suggested move that I saw was for black to play here. Which this would actually resolve a lot of problems that black had in regard to this territory in the lower right. There's some bad aji involved with this in the lower right corner. So we're going to see that in a few moves actually. White plays here. And this is the shape move. And let's just go through the board, the game moves a little bit here. When white plays here, white is looking at some bad aji in the black territory. So that's what I was talking about just now. And if black plays away, White can push through here. If black would usually want to answer here, then this is a kind of a forced sequence where white can just push through here. It would be very good for white. This would be a success for white. So black has to protect the territory. So it's the fact that these two black stones being not connected to anything makes this white move a forcing move against black's territory. So just going back to that other variation that I was suggesting, if black plays, sorry, not that one, this one. If black plays here, then this ceases to be a forcing move because black's all connected up in the center. So white can't do that. White's hope would be to make this work, but in this case, there's none of that Aji towards the lower right corner. So there's a big difference there in how secure black's territory is, and it would make it a fightable position for black. So black's goal in this fight would be to probably to get some points in this general area while white escaped into the center. So here, yeah, I sort of gave you a preview of this move. This is actually probably the better move. And again, black saves these stones in the center. And you can see that the value of white having a forcing move here, it's gone now. So that has ceased to be a problem for black. And white can break through in the center, but this is, black just keeps on extending. This is going to be okay for black. Black's getting something in the lower part of the center, and white's shape is not all that great. For instance, if at some point black pushes through here, black will be threatening to play an Atari here. White's shape there is not so great. So in the game, black played here, but white could force with this move. So like I was showing you, white is threatening, if black plays here, white is threatening to play like this. Yeah. This would just be a perfect sequence for white. It's no good for black. So black answered here. This protected the corner territory, but now white cuts here. And I would want to say that black cannot escape the one stone, but that's what he did. So black played here, and white just captured 4 stones in the center. So this result here, where white has captured 4 black stones, getting about 10 points of territory, and black did not get very much out of it. Black does have a little wall here, but starting with a position where white was sort of vulnerable on the right side, and black had potential to attack, just these 3 stones in the center is not really a lot that black got out of it. So this result was bad for black, and when I was looking at it with Katago, indeed, black's score went down fairly badly. So black switches to the lower side. This is the one remaining big area where they can have a fight. And black does have some hopes to attack white on the lower side there. And Tang Weixing's plan when he plays like this is he's just going to save that group. He's not going to sacrifice anything, and he's going to keep a lead in territory. That was his game plan in this game. So he's not really worrying about being attacked or killed or anything like that. He's just going for the territory. And it's working for him. You can see white's taking as much territory as possible. And this is fixing white's shape. And now white plays. This is threatening to cut black off. And now white is starting to make eyes. So it's a very logical sequence. Now white has an eye on the lower side for the time being. If white gets to play at this point, this will become a living shape. So locally it's a living shape, a last resort. White doesn't really want to play this move on the first line. It's not increasing white's territory, but white can make a living shape by playing here. Also, white does have a potential eye if white plays this move, which would let's make a variation for that. So, for instance, if black plays this move, which would make, in this case, white would still have one eye on the lower side. So at some point, white could play here. This is usually going to be alive. Like, it would be an exceptional case where it got killed. Or white could start with, maybe white could start with this move and play it. This would be even, this would be 100% okay. So it's going to be difficult for black to kill this. And Matthew Nauman is, that's a good point, a good timing to make that, because I'm about to say that actually it's pretty close. So Matthew Nauman is asking, seems like a completely disaster on the right, and it was. We started with a game that was slightly better for black, and it looks like black made a huge loss there. Black did get an attack on the lower side here, and actually the suggested move for black in the game, when black plays away like this, and in this variation black allowed white to play this move, which is a key point. It looks to me like Shin Jinseo is trying to allow white to take the offensive and trying to complicate the game by doing so. Because this move, the 4 black stones here, these 4 black stones, they're not even connected up to black's group on the lower side. At any point, white can cut them off by pushing through here. Sorry, this side. So if white pushes through here, those 4 stones can get cut off. Like I told you, at any point, white can live on the lower side with a move here. So black's getting very vulnerable in the center of the board. Black is thin. So that's why this pushing move here that white played in the center was a key point. And actually it does, this is the point where the computer programs start to say that white is ahead. So if Shin Jinseo thought he still had a winnable game, or an easy game, you might say, it would have made sense for him to play something in the center, just to prevent white from doing that. And something like this, for instance. And eventually white's going to have to make 2 eyes. And then black can, for instance, black could play this move. Or maybe black's going to, yeah, that's okay. It's a big move. So in the game that black just played here, he's probably not feeling so good about the game at this point. And he's trying to keep things in a kind of a chaotic situation where they're volatile. He doesn't want things to be fixed. And that's sort of indicated by his invasion after white is pushed on the 4th line, invading there. It seems to be a very dangerous move. He's trying to make the things dangerous. He's basically trying to complicate things. White pushes here. This is an important point. And black pushes through and cuts. So this is where Tang Weixing's game plan is, people say that his game plan got in the way of his positional judgment, because up to this point, white left some weak stones on the right side, and he allowed black to attack, and he sort of flowed with the attack and actually got some profit there in the process. So that worked really well. And next, he had these weak stones on the lower side, but he didn't stop taking territory on the left side of the board. You can see there's something like 15 points, a bit more than 15 points actually on the left side there for white. White took that territory as much as possible and also managed to save that white group on the lower side. So his whole game plan was that he wasn't going to worry about having weak groups. And so that he's going to continue with that game plan, and it was working really well up to this point. But actually, this is where he had to sort of change gear. And if he had played here, and black will take the corner, white will play here. This is another important move in the center of the board, and black's going to have a very difficult time reducing the upper side. You might remember that there's there's a cutting point here. Black can get cut off. So everything there is very vulnerable. White has, because if white pushes through here, at any point, let's just put that stone on the board. If white pushes through here, black's going to answer here. It means white has, this would be a forcing move. This would be a forcing move. In this case, it works better for white not to put those stones on the board. But white has a number of forcing moves here. And because of that, at this point, there's basically, because of those forcing moves white has, it's relatively difficult for black to break through this line, just because white has forcing moves against those 3 black stones. These 2 black stones, they're not connected yet. There's an opening here for white to push through. So nothing is connected. And so just to show you what Katawo came up with was something like this. Like there's a number of variations that are sort of similar. Black has to play these attachments in order to get anywhere. And it's a bit painful. So at this point, playing here is a move that comes up in a number of variations that I studied. This is going to be a forcing sequence against black's stones on the left side, and black's connection from the lower left to the left side there. So black has to answer these moves. And white gets a second die in the center there. So this area here, this area has become white's second die, has an eye here. That means that white's not going to have to add any moves to that white group. And the endgame play here, which is really big, that's going to be something that white can play at any point. That's really significant. And then white just continues with the upper side. And this is going to be an easy win for white. So this is actually a sequence where black has managed to get into the upper side to a certain degree, but even that, it's not enough. So it's really pretty hopeless for black. And white has a comfortable lead. So he could have won this way. If he had played sacrifice the corner, he would have probably won. But up to this point, his game plan of just saving everything and taking territory as much as possible was working really well. So maybe it was just because human players have emotions. There's a tendency to keep on going with the strategy that worked. So I think it's a human thing just to want. Obviously, white can live in the corner. So yeah, that's big, something like 20 points, a 20-point difference. But now white's in trouble. So this is actually, it's probably already finished. But yeah, I'll finish it off for you just to show you what happens here. When black plays here, black is starting to put some pressure on this white group. So white has to be careful of this group now. It's getting to be in danger. In return, white still does have the potential cut here, which sometimes works. A potential cut here, which sometimes works. But for the time being, white has to do something with this group on the left here. So white starts with this. Yeah, that's a good shape move. Right. At this point, pushing through here, a very solid, simple move that pretty much finished white off. There's nothing white can do now. But I can't really find a winning sequence for white even before that. So maybe white could have done better with moves like this, or moves like this. It's not as if black is going to be captured there. So maybe here, maybe here. It's not as if black's going to be captured. I sort of doubt that I can find a winning variation for white. But it really got very much simplified when black pushed through here. This sort of finished off the game. So basically white's group on the lower side, it's not 100% alive. And in the game, white played here. Now this is a kind of a move, it's taking away the opportunity for black to play the Atari there first. So what I'm saying here, basically this is protecting white's group on the lower side. So the question is, what happens if white plays something that's going to protect white on this side? These stones are in trouble. So that's white would like to be able to protect them. So first of all, let's look at white playing here. This is the strongest move. It's refusing to give black anything, because that cutting stone there, this stone here, is cutting black. The problem with this is that black can actually play an Atari here, obviously forcing. And with this, the black stones are connected. So what I'm saying is that if white pushes through the cut here, black has a neat way to deal with that. It's just so beautiful. Of course, the players, this is something that I'm pretty sure the players, they had it worked out. So black's move here, like if black just plays an Atari, those black stones might have trouble escaping. But it's a lot easier if black plays here first, which is another forcing move on the right. And white cannot afford to give up those 4 stones, so black's going to get this. Playing any kind of Atari is not going to make any difference. It's actually going to make it worse. So that was how an Atari there at black 2. Black hasn't played it yet. Black could have played it earlier, but he didn't play it. Basically, black's winning anyway, so it's not a big deal. But if black plays that Atari at 2, black stones are connected there. So the best white can do is maybe take from this side. And white has to live there. Although white can live with this move, it's sort of painful because that takes away most of the endgame that white wanted to play on the lower side of the board. So that's a huge loss in territory. And black's going to be able to live on the upper side anyway. We can see that this white group is still in trouble. It still is not connected up to anything. And so it has to escape. So yeah, something like this. Black's going to get territory on the upper side. And something really important in this variation is the fact that black got that covering move at 10. So securing this territory on the lower side was a pretty significant gain for black. Black's also getting some territory on the upper side and a little bit on the left side too. So white's basically just being forced to play dominant points, useless moves. All of the territory is gone. So this is a win for black. So the other variation I might show would be maybe this one. This would make a better connection for white on the upper side. But in this case, black can just play here and capture those white stones. And it's very similar. Like if white plays here to protect the group, then black's going to play here and live on the upper side. If white captures the upper side. This is actually sort of fun. If white captures the upper side, I think I'm going to make this into a problem. Because white's group it looks like it might be alive. For instance, if black plays here, white's going to be able to play here and live. That would be alive. So it looks like these 2 points are miai. If black plays here, white still has an eye on the lower side and is alive. So that would be alive. And this also, it would be alive. So can anyone tell me how it dies? It'll probably show up as one of my life and death problems. Quiet. I hope I'm still connected to the internet. Okay, good. The whole thing dies if black plays. Let's just show you if black plays here. Yes, H1. Very good. Rick Rubenstein got it. So, yeah, this basically, if white plays in some fashion to cut the black stone off, then there's no way to make it into 2i. So that was the key point. It's dead. Yeah. I'll give you a few dozen problems to forget this one, and then it'll show up. in the mid 200s, I guess. Okay, where are we? So yes, so white answered here. So this is cutting the black stones off. In some cases, white's going to be able to capture these 4 stones, but it's not really relevant anymore because black pushes through. You can see white's in trouble here. Yeah, this is just, it's finished. And white playing here, there's no special meaning to these moves that white is playing. He's just preparing to resign, basically. At this point, white's probably given up. It's not really gaining anything there. And white's starting to go here, but white has to connect on the left before cutting. White would like to be able to cut, but it's not even a ko when black pushes through. So white connects. White would like to be able to make it into a race to capture. You can see he's trying to make some kind of display of something that looks like it's a close fight, but it's just not working. If white cuts here, this looks so bad. Let's see how black would be playing the ko for a while, but black's going to win the semi if black wants to. Looks like black could probably connect up here also. So for instance, moves like this, and this would connect black off. So black does have the option of connecting after this. And it's just, however black handles it, there's a number of ways black can handle it, actually. That was just one idea. So white gave up on cutting black, but cut here. So white's just setting the scene to resign, because when black pushes through here, this is where he resigned. But white connects here. You can see in the process, he's killed his group on the lower side. So if black plays this point, then white's group in the center there, it's going to have only 3 liberties left. And black already has, actually black has 6 liberties, because in this area here, it's going to take white 3 moves. If white plays from this side, that's 3 liberties. Or if white plays from this side, and still white has to connect now, so it's 2 more liberties also. So it's at this point, black has 3 liberties there, and so it's 4, 5, 6 liberties. It's just too many. Black's winning by about 3 moves there. So this is where Tang Weixing resigned, and in general, he seemed rather disappointed about his performance, but I think he should be proud of it. Beating top players to get to the final and being second in a world championship. Obviously, he would want to win, but I think he showed a great performance. He was in this tournament last year too, and so he's continually doing very well in this tournament. It's so easy just to sort of fade out when you don't actually capture the championship, but he's hanging in there. I'd say he's made a lot of progress. So that was the 2 games. Yes, I think I was sort of planning to make it something like an hour and a half, to make it a shorter version, since we're not watching the games live. And this was the decisive game. So this was the championship final that decided Shin Jinseo is the winner of the tournament. So that's it. I guess I'm finished now. Black D10. H10, yes. So yeah, that was a comment. It's just that I had trouble finding a winning variation for white. The answer to Thumper's question is that I don't really know. He's fairly young. Yes. So I guess he's not been pro so long, but he's close to the top, obviously. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for visiting. I see a lot of my patrons here, but if anyone isn't a patron and you're interested, just look at the comment that's pinned at the top of the chat and take a look at my Patreon page. Thanks for visiting. Sign up to my channel and everything. Goodbye.